Hello everyone, it's Sun from Stories Untold Till Now. A lot has happened, and if you're interested to hear about what's happening in my life, then stick around to the end. Today's delicacy is about one of the most catastrophic disasters in history, the Chernobyl meltdown. Located in Ukraine in a settlement named Pripyat, which is 10 miles away from the city of Chernobyl. Near the end of April in 1986, a mistake was made, one that would alter the course of this town forever and soon would serve as one of the most historic lessons in the world. Workers in the reactor 4 would make a grave mistake when they were trying out an experiment to see how the reactor would react in the event of a blackout. The problem was that the technicians did not see the reactor itself was still very much unstable. Workers shut down the reactor's power regulating system and its emergency safety systems, and they withdrew most of the control rods from its core while allowing the reactor to continue running at 5 to 7% power. Then what followed was a chain reaction of events. At approximately 1:23 a.m., a fire erupted and caused mass amounts of radiation to pour into the environment. One person died immediately, and the other died later at the hospital. Emergency crews responding to the accident used helicopters to pour sand and boron on the reactor debris. The sand was to stop the fire and additional releases of radioactive material. The boron was to prevent additional nuclear reactions. A few weeks after the incident, the crews completely covered the damaged unit in a temporary concrete structure called the sarcophagus to limit further release of radioactive material. The Soviet government also cut down and buried about a square mile of pine forest near the plant to reduce radioactive contamination at and near the site. Chernobyl's 3 other reactors were subsequently restarted, but all eventually shut down for good, with the last reactor closing in December of 2000. The Soviet Union did, however, try to cover up the incident. On April 25, 1986, at approximately 5 a.m., they awakened General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev. They notified him that there had been an explosion and a fire at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, but the reactor was intact. Throughout this time, the residents of Chernobyl still had no idea what was going on, and everything was still very much hushed. He had not even bothered to wake up the other members of the party. This would result in a very much delayed information and action on what to do with the plant. However, when the radiation began to rise, he decidedly called Boris Sherbina, deputy head of the Soviet government and chairman of the High Commission, was summoned from a business trip to Siberia and sent to Ukraine. He arrived in Pripyat, the town that housed the construction workers and operators of the nuclear power plant, around 8 p.m. on April 26, more than 18 hours after the explosion. Only then did they wake up to the realization that the immense radiation was leaking through and an immediate action had to be taken. While the various leaders brainstormed on how to deal with such an explosion, when it was 9 p.m., things turned south much faster than anticipated. 3 powerful explosions illuminated the dark red sky above the damaged reactor, sending red-hot pieces of fuel rods and graphite into the air. But even without further explanation, the newest ones put Pripyat citizens in greater danger. The wind suddenly picked up, driving radioactive clouds northward from the damaged reactor and covering parts of the city. Radiation levels increased on the city plaza in front of the party headquarters in downtown Pripyat, rising from 40 to 320 to 330 microregions, a legacy unit measuring exposure to electromagnetic radiation per second, or 1.2 riotogens per hour. Armen Avigan, the director of one of Moscow's nuclear power research institutes, who had been dispatched to Pripyat as a member of the government commission, approached Sherbina and demanded the city be evacuated. Still, during this time, the citizens knew nothing. There were rumors, but still nothing. Officials and policemen wore gas masks, but none of its citizens knew the horrors that were coming toward them. By 1 a.m. on April 27th, the local officials in Pripyat had received an urgent order from Sherbina to prepare a list of citizens for evacuations. They were given 2 hours to do the job. To some Pripyat citizens, the evacuation came as a long-awaited relief. To others, as a surprise. Pripyat City Radio transmitted the announcement soon after 1 p.m. Many left their own home, and some say thinking that this wouldn't be anything serious or that they wouldn't be gone for a long time. Many did not think that this would be the very last time they would set foot in their home. The reason why Chernobyl was not as bad as it could have been is because of the 3 men who quickly decided that they were going to ensure to stop the leaks that could have potentially killed millions, if not billions more people. The heroic men were named as mechanical engineer Alexei Aneneko, senior engineer Valery Bespalov, and shift supervisor Boris Baranov. According to mamamia.com.au, Aneneko said to the Soviet media in 1986, everyone at the Chernobyl NPS, nuclear power station, was watching this operation. When the searchlight beam fell on a pipe, we were joyous. The pipe led to various valves. We heard the rush of water out of the tank, and in a few more minutes, we were being embraced by the guys. Ananeko recalled being told by his boss that he could refuse the hazardous assignment. But how could I do that when I was the only person on shift who knew where the valves were located? The mechanical engineer responded. It was widely reported in the decades since the disaster that the men had succumbed to acute radiation syndrome, but in fact, the 3 men survived. As of 2015, it is understood that 2 of the men, Aneko and Besalov, remain alive. Boris Baranov, the shift supervisor, passed away in 2005 from a heart attack. These men had every right to refuse this job, and they decided not to because they knew for a fact that they were the only ones who could handle it. The initial cleanup of Chernobyl was from 1986 to 1989. Liquidators, who were the civil and military personnel, were called upon to deal with the consequences of this disaster. The exact number of liquidators is unknown because there are no complete accurate records of the people involved in the cleanup. The Russian registries list approximately 400,000 liquidators as of 1991, and approximately 600,000 people were granted as the status of liquidator. These 600,000 individuals receive special benefits because of their involvement on and off-site in tackling the accident's aftermath. They worked on decontamination and major construction projects, including the establishment of settlements and towns for plant workers and evacuees. They also built waste repositories, dams, water filtration systems, and the sarcophagus, which entombs the entire 4th reactor to contain the remaining radioactive material. Now, we turn to how the events could affect the previous residents for years to come. Following the exposure to radiation, the health of the workers would suffer immensely, according to nuclearsafety.gc.ga. On the day of the accident, there were 600 workers on site. 134 suffered acute radiation sickness, 28 of whom died in the first 3 months. For those who survived radiation sickness, recovery took several years. Among the 600 workers on site, increased incidents of leukemia, cataracts were recorded for exposed to higher doses of radiation. Otherwise, there had been no increase in the incidence of solid cancers or leukemia among the rest of the exposed worker. There's no evidence of increase in other non-cancerous disease from ionizing radiation. The 530,000 registered recovery operation workers who worked at the accident site between 1986 and 1990 were exposed to doses ranging from 20 to 500 MSV. To this day, their health is being closely followed. On the public, the same article states that among the residents of Belarus, the Russian Federation, and Ukraine, as of 2015, there had been almost 20,000 cases of thyroid cancer reported in children and adolescents who were exposed at the time of the accident. Approximately 5,000 of these thyroid cancers are likely attributed to the children drinking fresh milk containing radioactive iodine from the cows who had eaten contaminated grafts in the first few weeks following the accident. The remaining 15,000 cases are due to a variety of factors such as increased spontaneous incident rate with aging of population, awareness of thyroid cancer risk after the accident, and improved diagnostic methods to detect thyroid cancer. The radiation dose due to the Chernobyl and other European countries was less than 1 MSV. In more distant countries, the radiation from the accident had no impact on the annual background doses and was non-significant to public health. Psychological or mental problems. According to several international studies, people exposed to radiation from Chernobyl have high anxiety levels and are more likely to report unexplained physical symptoms and poor health. At the moment, there is no evidence of decreased fertility in men or women in these affected regions, as birth rates were already low in these areas. With the events of the nuclear meltdown being known, there was something quite odd about this case that even the most skeptic of them all couldn't expect. I've left this mystery for last. You see, at the beginning of the year in 1986, the people living and working at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant began to experience a series of strange events. Sightings of a creature described as a large black bird-like creature or a headless man with a 20-foot wingspan and red eyes began to be reported by the workers of the power plant. The creature would soon later become known as the Blackbird of Chernobyl. People who witnessed the Blackbird soon started to experience horrific nightmares, threatening phone calls, and some had first-hand encounters with the winged beast. Reports of these strange happenings continued to increase until the morning of April 26, 1986. At 1:23 a.m., reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in the former Soviet Union exploded. The most acceptable theories suggest that the Blackbird of Chernobyl may have been the same creature dubbed the Mothman that terrorized the population of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, leading up to the collapse of the Silver Bridge on December 15th, 1968. Investigators have suggested that the appearance of this creature is an omen of disasters to come in an area in which it shows itself. The physical description of both Blackbird of Chernobyl and the Mothman are very similar, and the reports of nightmares and threatening phone calls leading up to these disasters are shared in both cases. What do you guys think of this historic event? Or what do you guys think about the mysterious quote-unquote Mothman? Do you think there was more that could have been done differently to prevent this disaster? Let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, every single source is in the description box. If you guys made it through and want an update on me, here it is. Well, since the last time I posted, a lot of things has happened personal-wise, and a lot of it unfortunately cannot disclose, but it did leave me distressed for a while. College has definitely been a pain. In all honesty, I wish some of my classes had a physical material form so I could fight them, just for that purpose. Lastly, my car for this last week and a half decided to not start. So I went from back and forth from the dealership to a third-party dealership, trying to find out because I had a warranty on a battery, and then it was like, no, the battery's fine, no, the battery's dead, no, it's actually the starter, no, it's the alternator. There were so many things. At the end of the day, guys, it was the battery. It was fixed today. I spent like 4 or 5 hours just waiting, which honestly I'm okay with. I depend on my car, so it's like, you know, I had anxiety, especially when I worked on it for 3 hours by myself last time. That was an absolute nightmare. There's some things that I am struggling with, but all I can say is I'm so grateful that I have this is one of my creative outlets, and the fact that you guys are still here really means a lot. I know I lost 2 of you guys due to my inactivity. I'm sorry if you guys come back. Cool, if you don't, then, you know, power to you. Wish you the best. Now that I have a good feel for how my schedule is, you guys should see me more, but again, life is really unpredictable, so I'm not even gonna promise anything, because before I was like, yeah, you'll see me 3 times a week, and then you guys used to see me every day, and then sometimes I would post every day. So honestly, life's a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're gonna get, and that includes my uploading schedule. As always, guys, stay sunny, and thank you so much for your support. Bye-bye!